Beyond Bitcoin Hangouts are meant to give everyone a voice, a chance to speak with others who are passionate advocates for expanding the blockchain's use cases out into the world and beyond. Do you have a crypto community you would like to represent and hold open hangouts for? If so, you might find yourself on the path to owning a stake in Beyond Bitcoin. We are looking for people who care about people who want to bring others together, because crypto communities are people. Beyond Bitcoin is a movement of thinkers and doers in the crypto space. And if you feel you are one of them, reach out to beyondbitcoin@gmail.com for more information on how to debut your community's efforts to reach to the stars and beyond. Welcome everyone to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, May 26th, 2017, and this is episode 208. And we're joined, as we are every week, by a bunch of crypto advocates who are interested in technology, disruptive technology, changing the world, and how blockchains can change the space. So in this ecosystem where blockchains are growing and being born, it's kind of the wild, 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 wild west, where there are plenty of places to stake your claim, but turning your back can make you lose your claim. And you need to really trust in a space that we always like to say is completely trustless. But let's face it, when we keep humans in the ecosystem and we lift up humans and we see them as important, trust is always a factor. So for that reason, we like to open up people to join up every week and earn trust by being transparent and answering questions from communities who they ask for investment from and donations from to build the projects and the visions that they see. We've been doing this for quite some time now, almost 4 years, and we have been at the foundations of the BitShares ecosystem and now Steem. And we are also covering the foundations of EOS in the future. So there's going to be a lot of really good things coming from these hangouts, and we hope that we can bring on as many projects and people who care about this stuff to maybe get a little bit of their message out, and who knows, maybe get paid a little bit in the process. So with that said, we join every week to do this, and we make sure that this is open for you. You don't have to pay to join these hangouts. You just have to earn trust from people who will upvote you. So RSVP every week on the RSVP thread, which is on steemit.com under the Beyond Bitcoin Communities tag. And make sure to have everybody who trusts you, who knows what you do in this space, upvote you. Make a Steemit account if they don't already have one and upvote you. This is a way that we can help others to gauge how much they can trust what you're doing in this space. So with that said, we're going to have 4 projects that wanted to join up this week, or four individuals who are going to be speaking about their projects. First is going to be Dinesh Lewis, and he's going to be talking about Viva. There's going to be TimCliff, and he's talking about the Steemit ecosystem. And CM Steem is going to be joining us for his update on Gridcoin. And then we're going to cap it all off with JP Henderson, who's going to be joining us to talk a little bit about Ohm, which is a new cryptocurrency spelled OHM. So with that said, please feel free to go ahead, Dinesh, and say hi to everybody if you can do that.
Hello, thanks. It's Dennis. Dennis H is I guess that's just the username there. Thanks for having me on.
Sorry. I apologize. You never know when it's because everybody's, because we're so far away. I don't know where you live and what your name is. So it's Dennis H. Lewis.
That's me. And so let me just start off by saying that I'm a little overwhelmed. I've never been on you. I've been listening the last hour or so, trying to get the feel of things. I'm not a crypto nerd by any means. I am the storyteller for Viva. And I'll do my best to answer questions and get out our message as best we can. But please don't expect a lot of technical insight, because that's not who I am.
Well, Dennis, it sounds like you're a storyteller, and I have I won't lie. One of the best storytellers in my life has just left me, so I'm in the mood for a story. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the story of what brought you into Viva and the community, and give us a little bit of your story maybe first, leading up to it?
Sure, that'd be great. Well, I am by profession a marketer, by just spirit, I'm a storyteller. I got that from my grandma, an awesome storyteller. And what I do is I try to help bridge the gap between things that seem really complicated and make them easier to understand. I've known the people behind the Viva project for quite some time now. I really dig the spirit and what we're trying to accomplish. And when Don reached out to me and said, "Hey, we need help," I just kind of jumped in. We weren't ready to do what we had to do, and we just rolled up our sleeves and got as much of it done as we could.
Well, sounds good. You say that you were in the marketing area first, right?
So my background is I was born not far from Roswell, New Mexico. So anything weird that I say is due to the UFOs.
Okay.
They're the ones that made me like I am. So once we get that out of the way, I've spent a lot of my life in Europe. I lived for 22 years in Spain. I've kind of I worked for IBM for a while, so I do have something of a technical background long ago. And I've sort of just, my career has been trying to make technology easy for people to and to make it easier for them to know what they need and how to buy it.
Well, that's a good skill set, actually, I would say, for cryptocurrency.
Well, from what I've been seeing in the time I've been kind of listening into conversations and wrapping my head around things, I would say there's a pretty big need for storytellers in this space. There's so much mumbo jumbo and jargon and complicated crypto stuff that for somebody who comes in from outside, it's really easy to be intimidated.
That is for sure, especially when you can see people who are, well, you can turn on the television and you can see these people who are getting hacked and malware and all the different, as though it's not hard enough just to get a dang Bitcoin. Right. Then we have all this other stuff that is a barrier to mass adoption.
Yeah, the money is an intimate subject for everybody. It's something that affects our lives. And when you money together with uncertainty and complicated, that throws a loop for a lot of people.
Yep, and it's important to get the money into the hands of the right people. And in this space, which is very, very much the wild, wild west, it's not always quite straightforward who that person or those people are, or who to steer clear of, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just sort of starting to get get that idea into my head.
Well, Ma just has a question here. If you feel like it's safe to go into some community questions, otherwise, if you feel like maybe you need to kind of set the stage a little bit more for us, feel free to do that too. I don't want to hold you back from the direction you want to take it in, but those are a couple guides from if that's okay.
Sure. Let me just kind of put a little bit of context, because I'm really aware that the Viva project is complicated, and there are a lot of moving pieces, and there's a terminology, when Don called me, that was one of the first things I said is we've got to make this simpler. And so for the last month, I've been really kind of, pardon the expression, but, busting my ass, trying to come up with ways to make things easier to understand. And Viva isn't a cryptocurrency typical kind of speculative project. It's really a new economy, and it's an economy that turns the traditional economy on its head. So, that's the underlying why that's so important. Everything that happens in the Viva economy gets reinvested back into the participants. So that's why we say it's an economy that invests in you. And, that's the context that I always like to start off conversations with, because it really makes it, that's the guiding light that makes what we're doing important.
So if you're talking to, let's say I'm Bob and I have no clue what Viva is, what is your spiel? I mean, what is the set of lines that you feel are closest to the message that you'd like to bring across to a new person?
So yeah, that would be, if you look at the world's economy, about 18 to 22% of all the entire economy goes straight into the pockets of the financial sector. Okay, these are the people that move money. They're the people, the big banks. They're the financiers. They're the guys in the pinstripe suits. And what the Viva economy does that is different is that pretty much that 18 to 20% that would go to lining the pockets of a few, fat cats in Wall Street gets distributed back into the long-term retirement accounts of everybody who participates in the Viva economy. And that's the big difference that makes our project so exciting.
And how is that done? Can you talk to that at all?
Sure. So imagine that there is, and this kind of goes maybe to Marcus' question as well, with a project we'll be launching on top of the Viva economy soon, which is Viva Cash. So I'm just going to kind of give an example. Imagine that, your cousin Frank is hiking in, somewhere in Minnesota, and he falls and he breaks his leg, and he gives you a phone call. He says, "Hey, I'm here. I needed some money because I fell. I broke my leg. I don't have money from McDonald's." And what you're going to be able to do with Viva Cash is you're going to be using just a text message. You're going to be able to send him, $200, $300, whatever he needs to get through that little problem he has. And if you were to do that with Western Union, of that $200, you'd probably pay Western Union, which are, basically one of these big fat cat financier companies. You'd pay them $25, $30 for just doing you the favor of sending him that money. In the Viva economy, you're going to pay a lot less, and then half of that lot less basically is going to go back into the VIP accounts of of everybody in the Viva economy. That's kind of an example. It may not be perfectly technically exactly that way, but that's the way you could understand how this is all working.
What advantage does that offer versus other existing blockchains?
The blockchain, the multi-dimensional, blockchain based on the Hyperledger fabric that William Banks is using. All of that for me is plumbing. So, I don't ask me too much about it. I know that it is, it's very sophisticated, but it's the deal here is the economy, the model that's happening around here. So every transaction that occurs in the Viva economy is basically feeding a investment pool which belongs to everybody in the Viva economy. And it belongs in a proportional way. I mean, based on your balance, you have X percentage of it, and it compounds. Right now it's compounding weekly. Soon it'll start compounding daily. And all of these transactions are occurring on this blockchain. So I don't know if I answered the question there, but that's how these long-term investment accounts grow. And our goal is that, everybody should be able at some point in a reasonably short-term future, be able to have a stable recurring income stream thanks to their participation in this investment pool.
So what do you mean by their participation?
Okay, so basically every vivo, which in Spanish is person alive, but for us it's somebody who participates in the Viva economy, has two accounts. They have a checking account, retirement account. So your checking account is where you keep your Viva coins, which is the base currency of the Viva economy, and that's what you can use to buy stuff. You can change it into dollars or bitcoins or whatever you want, and that is your daily activity. And the investment account, the VIP account, is your long-term participation. So that's where it's compounding based on the overall activity in the economy. So
can I ask you what activity we're talking about?
Sure. Every transaction that occurs in the Viva economy any fees that are created because of that. So if somebody takes Viva coins and they buy Bitcoins, well, there's a fee there associated with that. Half of that fee is going directly into the investment pool. So, and it's being split up between everybody in the investment pool.
Okay, and Matt just has a question here, if you don't mind. He says, can you explain Viva Cash and how that will expand Viva?
Yeah, that's really awesome, because one of the key things about the Viva economy is that we're not actively looking to grow it because we're asking people to buy Viva coins. The Viva economy is set up in a way that it will grow based on the applications that are using the Viva economy. So Viva Cash is a Viva business application, and it allows people to transfer money with text messages. So you'll be able to send a text message to Uncle George, here's $200, and boom, it appears in his Viva account. And he can go to a Viva ATM machine, he can go to a cash station and ask for the money back. He can use his Viva card, which will be rolling out soon, and just buy stuff at Walmart. Whatever, he can use the money however he wants. But that transaction occurred over the Viva economy. So there is a fraction of it that is, generating some fees in there, and those fees are going into the investment pool.
Cool. Now, out of curiosity, what happens? Well, maybe you don't know, and this is the problem, right? Like every project, even amazing projects, they're going to have things that we don't know exactly where it's going to go. But we are seeing with things like EOS, transaction fee free model. How would Viva deal with something like competing against transaction fee free models?
So, the whole point here is that our strategy is onboarding applications that use the Viva economy. So, and we have quite a few of them already mapped out, and they're already being worked on, and we'll be rolling things out soon. For example, Medic Access. Medic Access is a project being kind of spearheaded by a medical doctor in Mexico, very prestigious, and it's all about storing your medical records. I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago, and she told me, she said, I'm disabled and I have to go to the doctors. I do this, she does this, she goes from one doctor to another, kind of on a rotating basis. And she says, basically, I'm carrying a suitcase of medical records with me every time I go.
Yeah.
And the way Medic Access works is they are stored securely on the blockchain and for free for the individual, and it's the doctor who pays a very small fee when he accesses those medical records. So that very small fee that he pays occurs in the Viva economy, and it generates more activity, and that contributes to the investment pool as well. So by onboarding applications like this that really drive lots and lots of transactions, it's just by nature that the economy in itself is going to grow. That's going to benefit everybody in the Viva economy.
Can I ask how much of Viva is built?
So that's an awesome question. I would say there are pieces of it that are solid beta, and there are a lot of components that we're actively working on. We just finished the ICO. The purpose of the ICO was to bring in the developers to be able to actually finish and launch projects. We've set a roadmap of 3 months from now where we are going to be constantly releasing new functionalities from starting in very soon, and within those 3 months there's going to be a lot of new things coming out on the Viva economy. So I would say it's not I can't talk in percentages because I'm a math major, so I would hate to say a percentage and then it not be right, but I would say that there is a core functionality that is working, and it's visible, but there's a lot of pieces that are going to be coming out in the very near future.
If you don't mind, I'd like to piggyback on the answer that you gave me to my question, because I feel like I didn't quite, and please don't try to take this wrong. I bring these things up because the market will bring them up whether I bring them up or not. Okay, so from that standpoint, how you're expressing this is that there will be things like essentially dApps that'll be built, and that the transactions will be what add to the pool, which is very similar to how BitShares. However, with the emergence of EOS, well, it also is kind of how ETH works too, right? Like pretty much all of these chains are not fee free. Now, from a marketing perspective, you and I can both agree that free is always going to be something that users choose. If I have two identical services and one is fee free for me in terms of transaction fees, and the other one isn't, that's a huge selling point, right? And that's a very difficult thing to overcome if you don't have no fees. So my question is, when something like EOS does come out in the coming like 3 or 4 months, and it offers dApp developers the ability to offer their users a service with no fees, how does Viva compete against services like that? Because yes, I understand I understand many use cases for the blockchain, and this medical one is one. But I also understand that if my mom has that medical service, and she's got two of them to choose from, and one has no fees, she's going to choose that one.
You know, I'd almost, and here I'm going to go out on a limb, but I'm a marketer, and I'd say you're just flat wrong. Free and fees usually are not a deciding factor. You know, it's going to depend a lot more on the problems these apps solve. You know, people. You know, I was talking, and I'll give you an example. I was talking to my son.
Well, hold on. I'm just trying to. I want to say this because I'm saying if both services are the same, right? So if you could kind of give, like, that's kind of what I'm.
Let me go straight to the point.
Yeah.
I was talking to my son yesterday. We were talking about something else. He's a business major, and he said, you know, I heard a talk the other day, and this guy just he's making a killing doing stuff on the internet and selling it on Amazon at a higher price, and that's all he does. He just buys stuff and sells stuff. And he said, it doesn't make any sense. Why would people buy it from him on Amazon because it's at a higher price when they could go to the other place? It doesn't matter because it's easier for them to buy it on Amazon, or they find it first and that's what they know. I mean, there is so much room in the world for so many solutions, and the market is so huge. I don't really think that this is a question of competing. I think it'll compete on the problems we solve. If Medic Access is a better solution, then it'll work. And if the other one is better and it's free, it'll win, or there'll be room for both.
It's all about value proposition.
Exactly. I don't really, I'm not really worried about that. I think, actually, I would say probably it depends more on the quality of the marketing you do than on the quality of the fees that you charge. I mean, if that were the case, why are so many services, why do we pay for services? We pay for them because it makes our lives easier, even though, there may be a free alternative. People buy books when they can get a free copy of them at the library. Why do they do it?
Do you think that YouTube is a good example of something that counters that point, though? I mean, because I know there are many video services that I could pay for. I do pay for them, but YouTube still is one of the big ones to take down, right? I mean, so their fee free for the users has to have some huge effect for them to a degree. Am I wrong?
I mean, obviously, free is nice. I mean, there's no problem with free. I would say, though, that if you look at it, there are sites out there that charge you to see YouTube videos. Okay,
that's a good point.
And people are happy to pay for it. Why? Because there's a curation there. There's these are the now there's so many videos on YouTube you can't find the one you want to watch. Well, people are happy to pay a website just that somebody is finding the coolest YouTube videos and putting them on their site. So it's all about solving problems more than it is about how much it costs.
I agree to that to a very real degree, and I like that answer actually, because the power of free is very real. So I will very much disagree with you on if you're saying that that's not the case. However, I do agree with you with the statement that there are other value propositions that can be offered. That's kind of my question, really. The root of the question is what value propositions are going to be what counters the effectiveness of fee-free services, because people do like free. You can disagree with me or not, but they do. I mean, free is a big thing in marketing, right? Like you see it all over the place. Buy one, get one free. It's there for a reason. But from your standpoint, what you're saying is there's other value propositions and there are other ways of other factors that need to be taken into account, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in any kind of a commercial transaction, there's convenience, there's ease of use, there is functionality, there is the trust that you have in the brand that's offering you the service. There's so many different things that come into play. That the fees may be important, or they may not be important, depending on what problem you're solving.
Yeah.
I mean, why do people pay $30 to Western Union when they could send it with Steem, right? And it would be free. Well, first of all, they don't know, and second of all, Western Union has a huge infrastructure, and third, that's what they know, and that's what they use. So, even though Viva Cash is going to be much better than Western Union, we're not going to put them out of business overnight. That's not going to happen. And there's room for everybody.
Well, that is the new economy, isn't it?
Can I ask how much was raised in the ICO?
Yeah, you should. And I'm going to be really honest here. I don't know. We are, I could spin that a million different ways. Just to kind of put this in context, we had maybe 13 or 14 different channels where people were buying, where money was coming in. This was run a lot by the seat of our pants. Our accountants are busy working. We hope to have the audit finished soon. But I'm the marketing guy, and I don't have the numbers yet. The only thing I can say is that we reached enough that we are not going to be stopped.
Nice.
That's the only really concrete thing I can say. Are we going to do 150% of everything that we've promised with what we've raised? Probably not. But we're not going to be stopped now, and there is enough there that the Viva economy is going to be real, and it's going to flourish.
I remember at the beginning when the proposal and the first token sale was put forward. The idea was to have it was like 3 or 4 rounds of crown sales, and then move to dollar sales in dollars. Was that sort of road stuck to? And if so, like where did Viva end up on that path?
So this was our ICO. The goal was to bring in funds for development and for getting the message out. We've accomplished that. Starting next week, Monday is the goal. We will start selling crowns again. They're going to be significantly higher, and I'll probably in an email be communicating that price very soon. And our goal here is that every time we release a new functionality or a new app in the Viva economy, the price of Viva crowns is going to go up significantly. So everybody who got in on the ICO is going to be very happy with the next starting point for Viva crowns, and it's only going to get more expensive.
Are the early buyers, like in the first round, I bid in the first round, are the early buyers able to sell their crowns?
Oh yeah, we've never. The crowns are tradable on TradeQuick. They will always be there. I'm only talking about the new crowns that we sell to the market. Everybody else is free to sell their crowns if they want at the price that they want. Only thing I can say is that there's not been any indication that crown holders are looking to sell.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, well, we are a little bit over. I won't lie. I've got into this pretty deep here. So with that said, we are about 10 minutes over. However, we do have 4 different people who are going to be speaking today. So I have no qualms with making this a 2-hour hangout if that's okay with everybody, and just giving everybody 30 minutes, which is over what we normally do for all of you. But I'd like to keep it around 2 hours if that's okay with everybody. Is that cool with everybody here?
Yep.
Okay.
And if I've been overwinded, just tell me to shut up.
No, the problem, Dennis, is that we could talk about every one of these projects for like an hour and a half each, probably more every week. So I tried to give everybody a window of time, but obviously, with the help that I have to kind of make sure that I ensure that I'm very efficient on the work as far as making sure we don't go too much and have too much editing and stuff. But with that said, I would gladly say to please feel free to keep joining up, telling the story, and ask people to upvote you guys. And with that said, is there any way that people can reach out to you if they have any questions or comments or would like to be part of this?
Yes, of course. I would say first place to go is to our website, which is vivaco.in. So if you read it without the dot, it's VivaCoin. You can also go to .vivaco.in, and we're always online there. You can ask any questions you like. We're happy to talk to people. And if anybody wants to talk to me personally, my email is dhlewis@vivaco.in. So easier than that, impossible.
Well, thank you very much for joining up.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to TimCliff from Steem. However, before we do that, I would like to urge everybody to consider supporting the projects that join up to these Hangouts, and those that resonate with you. Consider promoting them, helping them, re-steaming them, upvoting them, sharing them. It doesn't always have to be money that you can. We all have unique value propositions, and when you care about a project, you have to consider putting that value proposition to work for that project, because you are the only person who carries that value, that specific value proposition, in the way that you do. So to have projects that you care about and fail to give that value proposition is, in my mind, one of the worst mistakes that we. So with that said, please consider helping these people who are trying to earn the trust in these ecosystems. Now, with that said, Tim, how's it going today?
Hey, Fuzzy. I'm good. How are you?
Very well. You're going to be joining up and giving us some updates and talking to us about some stuff. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just step back and I'll let you take the podium and kind of let everybody know first off who you are, in case somebody doesn't know who you are. Give a little bit of just maybe a quick intro, and then feel free to go into what you would like to present today.
Sure, sounds good. So first of all, thanks for having me back. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tim. I'm commonly known as Cliff on a lot of the platforms. So I was invited to speak on this show back in February by IntelliGuy, and I came on and talked about the work that I was doing as a backup Steem witness, and I had a really good time. I've actually been looking forward to and hoping to come back again, but I normally work on Fridays. I have a quote-unquote real job, so making it to these shows normally isn't something that I can fit into my schedule, but this week I took Friday off to enjoy a 4-day Memorial Day weekend, and so since I have the day off, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to come back and talk to all of you again.
Well, I greatly appreciate that. Now, you say that you have a day job and you're doing all that stuff, but you're also interested in cryptocurrency. You're working a little bit in this space as well. Can you tell everybody how you got into cryptocurrency, and then maybe get into whatever specific topics that you'd like to bring up with respect to Steem?
Oh yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, the main thing that I'm going to be talking about today is the Steem project, but I kind of wanted to talk about it from the perspective of my experience and how I got involved in it, because I think I probably offer a really interesting perspective in that I really started out with practically no cryptocurrency experience, and here I am today actually as one of the Steem witnesses. And so the story of how I got involved with the project and kind of worked my way through the system and got to where I am today is a really great story about how this platform can be really beneficial to the cryptocurrency community. So I can really emphasize with Dennis H., the previous speaker, and great job, by the way. I really enjoyed your talk, but this I had very little cryptocurrency experience. I talked about it in the last show, but I basically got introduced through my brother, who's a lot more involved in the cryptocurrency world than I am, and he's kind of always exposed us to it. But him and I have been really good friends since we were little, and I think our experience really started out as I talked about in the last show, with a computer game called Diablo 2, where the two of us actually built a business trading items in the game, and basically, there was a little economy going where you could take a Stone of Jordan ring, which was one of the items that your character could use, and we would trade those for win forces. And ultimately, we found people who were willing to pay real money for those items in the game. And so that idea that something digital that isn't really a real money, as people would call it, can have value, and people are still willing to pay what they consider real money for things inside of a digital world. And I think that has a lot of similarities to cryptocurrencies, in that a lot of these currencies are basically tokens of exchange within various economies, and those economies offer things of real value that people are willing to exchange for their, again, quote unquote, real money. So kind of just fast forwarding a little bit, my brother was always talking to our family about Bitcoin. I talked last time just about kind of the famous family conversation between my brother and my dad, who's a stockbroker, about how Bitcoin was a really good investment. And that was back when, Bitcoin was around $30 a piece. And I think for a lot of traditional investors, just wrapping their heads around this idea that something like Bitcoin, which, it's not a company, they don't have revenue, so how can something like that be of value, is a really hard thing for people to wrap their heads around. But my brother's always been pushing for it. He gave everyone in our family $25 worth of Litecoins for Christmas. And so, just as much as he can, he's always been trying to expose us to this. And about a year ago, he posted this article on his Facebook page, which basically was talking about the Steem platform. And, so I read the article and I got extremely interested in the platform. So I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with it, but basically the idea behind Steem is that similar to a lot of social media platforms that are out there, like Reddit or Facebook, Twitter, the users of the platform can basically post content, and the content is actually stored in the blockchain. And the interesting thing about it is that the system is designed to reward the users for the value that they're producing to the platform. So unlike Facebook and Reddit and all these other sites where, essentially you post something and you might get a lot of likes or shares or thumbs up and stuff like that, in the Steem platform, you actually get rewarded with Steem tokens. And those tokens can be traded for other cryptocurrencies, which ultimately can turn into, again, that real money. So I just found it fascinating how they had managed to put together a platform where users could participate. There was no cost for them to do so. And if they were able to add value to the community, they could actually be rewarded with tokens that had real value. So I found it really fascinating, and I ended up giving my brother $250 to buy Steem tokens, which for me at the time was actually a decent size of money. I don't make a whole lot, so that was a medium-sized investment for me. But I really thought that the platform had a lot of potential, and I wanted to be in on it at kind of the ground level, and try to be a part of something as it was starting to take off. So as I got more involved with the platform, I eventually learned about the witnesses. And so for those of you who don't know, basically witnesses are similar to miners in traditional Bitcoin, in that they're the ones that are basically producing and validating the block. But the huge difference between a witness and a miner is that instead of in the traditional mining platform where you're trying to basically outcompute all of the other miners and produce the block the fastest, the witnesses are competing for votes. And so the way that you get votes is by basically proving to the community that you're adding value. And so the huge paradigm shift is, instead of everybody just trying to have the fastest and best computers in order to mine, people are now competing as far as who can add the most value to the community. And the more value that you add to the community, the more witness votes that you get. And the more witness votes that you get, the more blocks you get. And the more blocks you get, the more you get paid. So it's a really interesting system in that it's encouraging people to add value to the platform.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Tim, I have a question for you. You got to break once in a while when we get.
Sure.
What I wanted to say to you is that we heard a lot of this the last time you were on, and I know that you're getting new listeners all the time, and they would like to hear this. But rather than have a repeat of the same thing, I think what a lot of people are interested in is to hear just a brief, very brief of how you are. And what most of us take for granted. A lot of the show do know what Steem it is, or they know how to look it up. We're really curious about what's wrong with Steem it now, or what's going to be fixed on the horizon. Because a lot of us use Steem it, but we don't follow the GitHub as closely as we could, and we don't know what new things have to be done. So you're almost out of time. So can you bring us up current day, and let's just deal with today forward?
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you. So to kind of tie that into my experience, when I first joined, I think the user experience for new users was very frustrating. And as a new user, there were a lot of problems and difficulties, such as you weren't really able to find very good information on how to do things. Things weren't very well explained. And probably the more frustrating thing is when you're on the platform, you're seeing all these people making thousands of dollars per post or $100 per post, and you put in a whole bunch of time and effort to put together a really quality article, and you get 5 upvotes from a few people who have very little Steem power, and you're maybe lucky if you make 5 cents worth of Steem on your article. And that was probably one of the more frustrating experiences for the users. And along with that was the fact that your vote really wasn't worth much. So there were all these users with really lots and lots of Steem power. A common term on the site used to describe them was whales. And so if a whale upvoted your post, you could make hundreds or thousands of dollars. But if you didn't get noticed by a whale, then you might make a few pennies. And article after article after article from people in the community was talking about how, it's unfair, it's not fun, what's the point in doing this if, I'm never going to get noticed. And so about a few months ago, the community has really started trying to take a shift in paradigm and figure out, well, how can we make this experience more rewarding for new users? We don't want to hand out free money for people who aren't adding value. But at the same time, if someone joins up on the platform and they're doing good things, but maybe they just haven't gotten noticed yet, how can we help them to be rewarded in a way that's fair compared to the users that have maybe been there for a lot longer and have a larger following? So the upcoming hard fork that's being worked on right now, Hard Fork 19, is going to be making some fundamental changes to the way that the voting and the economy work. So currently today, when users are upvoting their posts, the system is basically looking at how many votes that post has and comparing it with the amount of votes that the other posts have. And it's not just looking at how many users voted, but instead it's actually looking at how much Steem power. So a user with a lot of Steem power is going to be voting and adding a ton more money to a post than somebody who doesn't have a lot of Steem power. But the way that the formula is currently written, it actually takes the amount of power and squares it. So if you have 1,000 Steem power and somebody else has 1 Steem power and you both vote on different posts, it's not that person added 1,000 times more that tokens. Sorry, I'm not sure of the word, but the person didn't add 1,000 times as much votes to that post. They actually added 1,000 times 1,000, which is 1,000,000. And so what that translates into is users who have a lot of Steem power, when they're voting on things, they have a very significant more amount of influence on the rewards than the users who don't have very much Steem power. And I remember probably about 6 months into my experience on Steem, I've been posting several times a week, fairly close to once a day. I've been spending a whole bunch of time on the platform. I've been getting a lot of rewards, and I'd earned quite a bit of Steem power. But if I upvoted on a post, still couldn't even add 1 penny to the value of that post, just because my votes were so dwarfed by those of the whales in the community who were basically getting to vote with around 1 million times as much steam power as me. And so the change that's going to be happening in the upcoming hard fork is it's basically going to get rid of the squaring. And so what that means is if instead of a user with 1,000 times as much power having 1 million times as much influence, it's just going to be if you have 1,000 times as much power, you have 1,000 times as much. And I think this is going to be a real game changer in the community and the economics, because there's now going to be more incentive for users to have just a little bit more steam power. You know, if I have 50 worth of steam power today, and I can get up to 60, you know, that's just a little bit more that I can add to my vote, a little bit more influence that I have in the site. And so I think this is really going to be an interesting dynamic in that it's going to make the value of the coin a lot more enticing, because just by adding more coins to your account, you're now going to start being able to have more influence. And I think that connection between the amount of coins that you have and the amount of influence you have is really going to be a driver for people wanting to have more coins and have more steam power.
Wouldn't you say that it? To me, I think the N2 thing might actually, in some ways, potentially create more of a reason to buy more. But the problem then is that you're going to have to buy quite a bit more to be able to actually have an effect, right? Is that essentially what you're saying?
Well, it's going to scale differently for people on different ends of the spectrum. So if you're already a whale and you're currently voting with 1,000 worth of steam power, and that's getting squared to 1 million, you already have a huge amount of power. But if you're currently a user with only 50 power and you're voting, yours is only 50 squared, which is about 250 worth. So that difference between your 250 as a small user and the 1 million as a huge user is a very large gap. So the people on the low end of the spectrum have very little influence. And what's the point of buying another 50 steam power if all it's going to do is bring me from 250 to 500 when I still have to compete against somebody with 1 million? Whereas with the linear curve, if I have 50 and I'm trying to compete against somebody with 1,000 steam power and use my influence, if I double my steam power, I'm that much closer to 1,000. So I do think that for the users on the lower end of the spectrum, who are the vast majority of users in the community, it is going to increase the value in holding additional steam power, because they're not going to need to make a $10,000 or $100,000 investment in the platform just to be able to get a few more pennies added on to their vote. They might be able to spend maybe a few hundred or a few thousand, and just based on a smaller amount of investment, actually be able to have a larger increase in influence on the website.
Now, out of curiosity, do you know, and I don't know how this will work, but I feel like maybe you can give me some insight. Maybe not. Feel free to let me know. But I'm kind of thinking of this as you have these votes that are linear now, right?
Yep.
And that essentially makes it so if you own 1,000 votes, you have 1,000 votes, as opposed to 1 million. If you have 10,000 votes, you have 10,000 votes, right?
Yep.
Now, that doesn't seem on the surface like it would hurt or change anything for people with multiple accounts. My biggest concern with the change, though, is to make sure, because there's a reason to make it. Hold on a second here. Tim, I think that you hit your mic or something, buddy. There are people on Steem who have thousands of accounts. So is there going to be any way for them to game this system?
No. So whether you have one account, so let's just use the 1,000 steam power example. So if you have one account with 1,000 steam power in it versus you have 1,000 accounts with 1 steam power, those votes, when computed, are going to have exactly the same amount of influence.
There we go.
It doesn't care how many accounts are being voted. It's purely a measure of how much steam power was put towards the vote. So if you want to split your accounts up into a whole bunch of them versus you want to just have one consolidated account, there's going to be no difference between how much influence you have. And that's the case with the current squared algorithm as well as the linear one that's being proposed. So in both of those cases, it has nothing to do with the number of accounts.
Cool. I wasn't like IntelliGuy said, we don't always look at the GitHub probably as much as we should. So I wanted to make clear that that's really the only change, and that there weren't any other changes that might come into account along with that. So hard fork 19 is literally just going to be the linear.
No, there's actually more. They're also adding. Actually, this is your thing, so you can explain it, Tim.
Yeah, so there's two more changes. One of them is basically there's a curation formula, and I'm not going to get too far into that, but I'll at least touch on it, is when users vote on posts and the posts get paid, the users who are voting are actually also paid a portion of that. And the idea is to incentivize users for voting on good content. So if you find good content and you vote on it and it makes a lot of money, then you get a portion of that. And so there's an incentive system for those users to basically find and vote on good quality posts. Now, because the formula for the rewards is changing from n squared to linear, they need to make a change in the curation formula to basically, I'm going to oversimplify it, but more or less make the curation work similar to what it does today. It's just the math needs to change in order for it to adapt to the fact. Yep. So that's change number 2. Change number 3 is related to the strength of your votes. So the way that it is right now, if you're voting on posts, you can vote 40 times in a 24-hour period with 100% of your strength. And you can do that every day, 40 votes per day, and then you won't run out of voting power. If you start to vote more than 40 times with 100%, then you start to deplete your voting power at a rate faster than it can recharge. And what ends up happening is eventually, even though you're voting with 100% strength, they're not going to have the full effect because you're not going to have as much strength behind your vote. The system basically prevents people from, going out and voting 10,000 times on something and, basically influencing too many things. So
on this point, Tim, could I ask a question and interject here that I think that's a great idea. It would be nice, and I don't really do a lot of curation, and it would be nice if we could tailor our creation reward levels rather than it being a fixed 40 times to vote and get all of your power, and then it starts to degrade. If you could say, well, I only post 10 times, I only curate vote 10 posts a day, so could I get all of my 100% power concentrated in the amount of time that I vote and curate for me, which will be different. So it's a tailored limit rather than it being one for everybody.
Yeah, and so actually I'm glad you said that, because that's very similar to the lines that the change is happening. So before the hard fork happens, which is today, every user gets 40 votes. And a lot of users have been saying the same thing as you have, which is, I can't vote on 40 things in a day. It takes me a whole bunch of time to find. So there's a lot of people that are pushing to go on the other side of that, which is, let me find 10 good posts in a day, or let me find 4 good posts or 1 good post, and let me just use all of my voting power on that 1 post or those 10 posts. And there's a balance to be struck there, because if a user can use up 100% of their voting power in a single vote, then that post is going to do extremely, extremely well, and they might get a lot of curation rewards for it. But then you might have another user who spends 4 hours a day on the platform digging through content and really trying to find the hidden gems of good things so that they can vote on them. And if you could use 100% of your strength in 1 vote, you would basically get the same curation rewards for finding 1 good post that another user spent a whole bunch of time to find 40. And so what they want to do is they want to find a balance between those two. And basically what the hard fork proposal is doing is it's shifting the balance more in the direction of the user who want to use more strength per vote. So they're lowering the limit from 40 to 10. And so what that means is now you can basically use up your voting power by voting on 10 things per day. And to compensate for that, for people who do want to use more than 10 posts, they can still vote with less than 100% of their strength. So if as a user you'd like to vote on 20 posts per day, you can vote, you have a slider where you can control how much voting power you use. So you can still find those 20 posts, and you can adjust your slider just down to 50% voting power, and you can still vote on 20 posts with 50%. Or if you want to vote on 40, you can scale yours down to 25%. But basically, by shifting the limit, the hard limit, from 40 down to 10, it's allowing users who want to vote on less posts the ability to use more of their power on those posts that they do find.
It would also be great in that same vein if in the user interface, the amount of voting power that remains would be present in that voting slider in some fashion, so that you would know, oh, I've already used 90% of my vote, so I better be cautious about how I vote for the next person I vote for, that type of thing.
Yes, definitely. And so that goes into an interesting tangent, which is there's a lot of third-party development that's done for the Steem platform. So various developers will write their own tools that interface with the blockchain. And so there's actually a website called Steem Stats where users can basically go and type in their username, and it'll show them exactly how much voting power they currently have. So it's not built into the steemit.com website, but there's other tools that users can go to where they can check that the voting strength that they have left.
Cool.
Probably best seen on busy.org, on your busy.org / your account name. It shows it right there. Steem Stats is a bit slow, and steemd.com it's also there, but it's a little more technical looking.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
So as the previous speaker was saying, the busy.org website is actually a kind of a parallel or competing website with Steemit. It interfaces to the same blockchain. So if you post something on steemit.com and it gets stored in the Steem blockchain, you can actually go to busy.org and you can see that same post. You log in with your blockchain account, you can upvote it there, and the upvotes are actually occurring in the blockchain itself. So whether you use the steemit.com user interface or the busy.org user interface, they're both wrappers for the same blockchain. So you're interacting with the same content. You just have a different UI layer to interact with. And what's been interesting is the busy.org platform has been adding a lot of features that the steemit.com development team just hasn't had time to work on yet. So a lot of people in the community will complain and say, we want this feature. We want to be able to see our voting power. And the Steemit developers are busy working on a lot of other projects. And so they might say, well, that's a good idea. We don't have the bandwidth to get that in right now, but we'll think about it for a later time period. The busy.org might go ahead and just implement it right away. So it's interesting in that users have a choice in the platform that they use as far as the user interface. But at the end of the day, whether they're using the one side or the other, they're all interacting with the same Steem blockchain.
That's a good model. I like the idea that these other organizations like busy.org, and I think there's one or two others, are using the same blockchain, and there's no restrictions on the ability to do that. That's the nice nature of open source, and the way it's done now is that they have full access to do a totally different UI if they want, and so it allows people that, for instance, are really more tuned into the UI side of things to do their work and let the back-end side do their work, which is more the Steemit organization is. And I'm not saying that they don't do user interface work. I'm just saying that it's a matter of focus and priority.
Yep, exactly.
I just about something that happened on Steemit, and I understand, and it's hard. I'm just curious of this yet because I think the whole platform's still, but. There was a user that I met in one of the comments where he said he upvoted some on the value of mining, where I went from $0 to $10, and I had one voter. I'm like, who the hell's that? Well, it turns out to be a guy named the Johal File, and I looked him up. Who's the Johal Files? And it goes, this user hasn't blogged yet. And I'm like, well, how could he have that much? I looked at his wallet. He has over 1.1 million Steem, or over $1.1 million. I can't remember. I think it's $1.1 million of Steem. And I was like, wow, this guy's a massive, massive, massive whale. And he doesn't even blog anything. And one of his comments he wrote was, yeah, I bought Steem Power, and I don't even blog. What I do with it is I curate. And just by my curation alone, because he shares in the curation reward, he gets paid a sum of the curation value as well. And so he says he makes about 3,000 Steem a month just by curating.
So that's his
which
job.
is exactly the model. Yeah, that's exactly the model that I think that Dan had intended when in. It said the big whales will eventually durations, and they won't have to host. They could just be curation pros, right? It's unfortunate that this guy seems to be alone in the water doing that to that degree, where he's quite happy just buying and holding Steem power to be a curation. So I'm wondering if Hard Fork 19 would do anything that way, as much as how much money he's making now, because that's the way he makes money.
Yeah, so I think this is a perfect opportunity to actually plug Fuzzy's whale shares thing, because that whale would be able to share that extreme voting power with other people that he trusts and is familiar with in terms of likeness, in terms of curation standards to others, so that he can spread his power elsewhere if he chooses to do so.
Yeah, that dude's a big supporter of mine. He's a really cool dude too.
And not only that, but he doesn't have to power down, right? But in addition to that, he has an incentive to stay powered up because he can still earn by trusting other people to curate for him. And he doesn't have to go by hand and curate, because what I see the biggest problem is, honestly, in Steem, is that we have witnesses that get paid Steem, and whales vote themselves in as witnesses. And that's the biggest problem in my eyes, because then they're consistently always going to be getting Steem that they can vote on whatever with. But if they're using bots to vote because they don't have time to really delegate voting out to people who can actually be people and bring the value of people into the ecosystem, then I think that we have a big issue. But that's a little bit. We've got a lot that we could talk about on this front. What I will say is we are about out of time. So before I move forward, I would just like to say thank you for joining up a little bit to talk about this, Tim. And also, if anybody wants to reach out to you or talk to you behind the scenes, how would they go about doing so?
Yeah, thanks, Fuzzy. So I'm on steemit.com. My username is @TimCliff, so I'll post that there. Users would be able to basically sign up for Steemit and reply or comment on any of my blog posts, and even if it's off topic for whatever they're commenting on, if they just want to, reply to my latest post and say, hey, I heard you on Beyond Bitcoin show, and I'd like to talk about whatever, then I'm happy to talk. I'm also in the Steemit chat system, so if you're on steemit.com, there's a separate standalone application called Steemit Chat, where users kind of hang out and talk informally, and my handle on that is TimCliff as well. So it's a little less of a challenge to sign up there. You basically just have to validate your email address, and you can log in.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. And it's always good to hear from you, man. And ironically,
yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on.
Ironically, I will always say this to you. I got into crypto and found the value of crypto for the exact same reason that you did. Maybe not the same exact game, but pretty dang close. Made by the same company. That's awesome. Yeah. So I think we are a generation of gamers and nerds who are about to build something pretty amazing. So thank you for joining up. And what we'll go ahead and do is I'm going to take just a moment before we move forward, and I'm going to say, please consider supporting the projects that you hear at these Hangouts that resonate with you, that you feel are powerful projects, that you feel really are something that is special to you. Because if you don't, you cannot guarantee anyone else will. So with that said, I'll also ask if you guys would consider sharing, promoting Beyond Bitcoin, these Hangouts. I would like them to be all week, every week, that people can join up to this Hangout room and just and be here for our Beyond Bitcoin radio when it comes out. So I'm trying to prepare all this stuff. I need community members who are interested in going out and promoting us. And I look through the Beyond Bitcoin tags, so I will normally see the people who are doing this stuff. So please let me know if I miss you, but please also try to or consider trying to support our Hangouts and advertise those as well too, because we never know out there who has a project that they would like to have covered and might not otherwise get coverage. And that's a very important place to start with. So with that said, Virtual Growth, I did not call you a nerd. We're all nerds. But you are here, so take it as you will.
Nerd.
A nerd with Scout's honor.
You're a nerd with Scout's honor, too.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to CM Steem, who's going to be giving some updates on Gridcoin, which is one of my personal biases in terms of projects in the space. I feel like it's well earned, though, in terms of the Gridcoin community and all the things they offer, and the fact that they were one of the first to ever be in the space where they were offering things that only now people are starting to come out and get paid big bucks to promise they will offer, but have not yet really shown it. So, with that said, Custom Miner, are you available to talk?
Hey, can you hear me all right, Fuzzy?
Perfectly, man. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the talking stick. I'll step back and let you give your updates.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Custom Miner from the Gridcoin community. I'll be talking about trading information, some community updates, some developments, and some shout out to some Steemit posts. So Gridcoin is a cryptocurrency which securely rewards BOINC computation. BOINC computation is volunteer distributed computing. Such projects are attempting to cure diseases, mapping the Milky Way, searching for extraterrestrial life on top of proof of stake. They're rewarded on top of proof of stake. So anyone can create a BOINC project to create a distributed cloud service of their own desire. We can reward your users on your behalf as opposed to you having to pay for computation up front. Like, why would you even do that?
And that's what most competitors are offering.
Yeah, like most competitors like Golem and Sonum and IEX, they're basically, you have to go to them upfront pay for your computation ahead of computing it. Whereas with Gridcoin and BOINC, you can create a BOINC project. If you've got a huge amount of computation you need done, you can distribute it to your volunteers. Your volunteers earn like a score, and external cryptocurrency systems can base their reward distribution against the proportional computation your users contribute to your project. So effectively, you can, spin up a cloud service without having to invest in any of the computing power to back it.
And the community rewards that based on whether they feel like it is a project that is up to their standards, or it's a voluntary type of project, or is it more just by volunteering to join with your BOINC power?
Well, within the Gridcoin community, we do have a whitelist, which is basically like, you create if you create a BOINC project and you want to get rewarded by Gridcoin, you would create a thread on our forum, basically introduce yourselves, describe your project. We do these interviews. If you want, you can do an interview and basically campaign to be whitelisted. It's not that big of a deal to get whitelisted. There's not many projects that haven't been whitelisted. The only reasons are large periods of inactivity. As long as you've got work for us to crunch, we're good. And security configuration of your BOINC server, do you use SSL? These are kind of things that might stop you from being whitelisted, but nothing, big.
Well, it's a great project, but I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So with regards to the main stuff I'll be talking about during this segment, so with regards to trading information, so the last time I was on Beyond Bitcoin, it was the 206th episode. We were just in the middle of a large spike in our market cap. We had like a crazy amount of trading going on. I think it was $16 million of trading in a single day, whereas we were used to, a couple 100,000 a day. We went from about 2 cents to about 6 cents within 24 hours, and we have reduced back down to between 3 and 4 cents. So we're still basically double the value prior to the large surge in trading activity. The majority of this is occurring on Poloniex. However, we do have full BitShares support through the Open Ledger. In fact, if you check my post, I've pointed out some arbitrage opportunities. Some users are trading at 4 cents or above 4 cents, and whereas on Poloniex is trading at about 3 cents. So, seize the opportunity to make a quick buck there, guys. Moving on to community stuff. So the 8th BOINC Pentathlon is over. It was basically an inter-team BOINC project competition. Yeah, basically trying to crunch the most for our teams. Team Gridcoin came 5th place. So, there are huge Boink project, Boink teams that we still have to recruit into our system, and that's a matter of removing the team requirement. Then we'll be able to, basically network with all these people. There's still a huge amount of computing power available for utilization within, the Boink network. We're looking at like 500,000 active users, and we've only tapped into 0.5% of that thus far. So huge growing opportunity there for us. But we came 5th. It's not bad. We're still ahead of like 30 other projects, but
Well, there is some from what I understand. You guys have there are people out there with huge server farms that are actually connected to this, right?
Yeah, a lot of people own data centers, and if you're not if you've got that capability, you can, on behalf of your community, crunch and get first place potentially. I know a few people with thousands of cores of their own personal computing power. It's not that uncommon. It's pretty cool.
And that's what you're up against. So to place 5th is a pretty big deal, actually.
Yeah, to place 5th is pretty good. We're still going up against, Ars Technica, IBM, Intel, that kind of thing. But yeah, with regards to everyone that participated, we are distributing Gridcoin proportionally to your computation during the pentathlon phase for those specific projects. So look out, that's going to be incoming your way. Other community topics we just held our 8th Boink project admin interview with Sam Foster from DoChamp Source Finder. It's an astronomy-based Boink project. It's a sister project to Skynet Pogs. It's does astronomy-based distributed computing. So it's only going to be a temporary project. So they need to get a huge chunk of work done, and then they can move on. So check that out. It was pretty cool. There are 7 other interviews that you can listen to on our SoundCloud or YouTube if you're interested. They're the most popular content of ours. With regards to holding more Hangouts, we hold a community Hangout for Gridcoin on a fortnightly basis, and the next Hangout is tomorrow, the 27th of May. That's our 31st Hangout, and this happens at 9 p.m. GMT. If you go to our RSVP thread, you can get a direct link to your own specific time, your time zone, so you don't miss it. That helps for organizing. With regards to development, we've got a total of 112 Gridcoin community tasks that we're tracking in GitHub. Some include bounties, such as improving the neural network mechanism for 200,000 Gridcoin, which is about between $6,000 and $7,000 at the moment. If you're interested, if you know C++, that's just an initial kind of bounty that we've got there. There's been talk of increasing that with foundation funds. So, pop your head in, say if you're capable of doing it, and we'll totally negotiate. With regards to upcoming releases, we have got in the roadworks, large UI changes have been developed by Hoopty-Whoop. So this is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to this. We've got the ability to enable debug flags on the fly, so we can, not have to reset our client every single time we want to see what's going on in testnet. We've got minor reduction in RAM usage, so you can dedicate more computing power to, your Boink. We've got translation improvements with more in the way. I think we've got 10 additional. We're about to implement, but still about another 20 to go. So I'd appreciate it if anyone wants their language supported, help out. That'd be awesome. And we're merging a development branch into the production. So basically, this is a large release that'll be coming, and I'm looking forward to it. Finally, just a shout out to some very high quality Gridcoin related Steemit posts. We've got why Gridcoin beats Golem hands down. It's very worthwhile reading this. This was originally created by Nate on the net on his blog, and with permission, I reposted it on Steemit. It basically breaks down exactly why Nate believes that Gridcoin beats Golem. And by comparison, Gridcoin's like $14 million market cap, and Golem, last time I checked, was like 400 million market cap. Fundamentally, they've not got anything in production yet, and what they are providing is not as awesome as Gridcoin and Boink, in my opinion. 2 other quality Steemit posts were Jimbo88's Raspberry Pi stack and his Z620 workstation posts. He was basically showing he created a Raspberry Pi cluster that you pointed towards Boink projects. It was really cool. I thought that was pretty neat. And then he gave a hardware breakdown of his Z620 computer that he was now pointing towards BOINC. So it's pretty cool that new, computing power is always being added to the BOINC community, and it's worth checking out those posts. So that is the end of my what I had to say. Does anyone have any questions with regards to Gridcoin, BOINC, any of the above?
Well, I would like to ask, if you don't mind, just one question for any, and I hope that this is something that is good for everybody, because I suspect that everybody has older computers that they don't really use very often, or probably aren't completely dead, probably can process and do some boinking. Is it worth it for people to use say like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old computer to do this?
Well, it will definitely help what's needing to be computed, as long as it's not 20-year-old equipment. If it's within the last 15 years, it's more than likely compatible with many of the BOINC projects for aiding in science. And you don't need to be crunching thousands of work units to be contributing. Your one work unit that you might have worked on for a week with your old computer might be the key for whatever research you're trying to achieve. It could be equally of value, but in terms of profitability, it's subjective. If you're paying for electricity and stuff, generally older hardware it'll be tough to compete with the latest hardware. But that's a matter of competitively crunching, picking projects that have got less participation rather than the very popular projects with a huge amount of competition.
So it's also possible then maybe for somebody to go out and find those projects that will be popular and get in on them early, because they're the ones who found them and they're the ones early in that ecosystem using the BOINC protocol, and that would probably pay them a little bit more if they're early in on it. Would that be safe to say?
Yes, that's accurate. If we've got a couple prospective BOINC projects, a gamble is that you could start crunching for it, and become the majority of the team's contribution for that project. And when the project gets whitelisted, you have a large magnitude, which you're getting rewarded thousands of Gridcoin for. It's a gamble, but it can work, yeah. As well as you could look into encouraging someone to create a BOINC project that is more compatible with your hardware. Say a BOINC project gets all of its CPU work ported to GPU. There's always room for new CPU projects. Likewise, sensor projects could be a thing in the future. So you just point a weather sensor outside and give some readings. You don't need to your computing power won't have an impact there. It's just a numbers thing. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, what I will do, because you guys all know that I could probably talk about this all day, Custom, but this is for everybody else as well. So feel free, everybody. I know that you guys already know this, but I feel sometimes like I need to remind you that it's worth it to speak up if you have a question or a comment. I will say that I personally believe that Gridcoin, ever since the day that we met, I didn't get into the community as much as I could have because of another community that I love. But you guys have always been one that I thought, my God, finally there's a token that's trying to innovate. Right. and that was from the very earliest days. I'm thinking maybe 2 years or 3 years old was what Bitcoin was whenever Gridcoin came out. But it's an old project, and it's one of the first that was really innovative in even a single way, but it opens up innovation in a whole spectrum of potential innovation and projects that can come from it. So it's amazing. And I told you guys I wasn't going to talk, so please feel free, speak up, guys.
I have a suggestion. Last night I bought some of my first few grid prices a lot. For me, I found that now if I have some of these grids, I don't really know what I could otherwise. But I've actually done some research on Gridcoin, and I was going to download, and then it says you have to client. You got to get the two each other. I don't know. I get confused just trying to learn the stuff. I get the idea. You're calculating, and then you're rewarded and then the team rewards coins. It's just it seems like pretty new. There's so much to learn. I would almost like for somebody to actually make that's very simple and says, do this, do this, do this, do this. Now you haven't realized it, but you're actually great now, or you're actually going in such a way that it's so simple that you work backwards all the term and all that kind of stuff. You don't, if you learn it all in the beginning, you get halfway into it and you're like, forget it, this is what my
Yeah, I get what you mean. I completely agree. We do need to refine a lot of the guides. They've not been updated since about last year. With regards to if you just want to be an investor, it's the crunching of BOINC work and setting up the BOINC client. That's all optional. It's been suggested that we should move, the setting up the Gridcoin client first before talking about BOINC. That was discussed today. But yeah, we've also discussed updating the YouTube videos. A lot of them are quite old. They're a couple years old, so a lot of the new terminology isn't explained. But I agree with what you're talking about, and it's going to be probably done in this summer.
That would be fantastic, and if you could do that, I will be a boinker or whatever you call it, because I got extra spare equipment hanging around here, and somebody says, "Hey, you could even do some of that." That's great. I would love to do that.
Exactly.
But I don't have a lot of time, so for my time from starting, get up and running has to be. I have to be able to have something running in an hour, and after it's humming, then I go back and I'm like, okay, so what the hell am I doing? Then I can go learn about it while I'm sitting there watching happily as it runs.
Yeah, I agree. I will definitely look into this. Thanks for the input, guy.
No problem. I want to see you guys succeed. It's not because disclaimer I bought some. It's because these guys, and this is just a public notice. These guys have been going on and on and on about their project in such a very excited and interesting way. They don't give up. They're constantly there, and I've seen a lot of projects stall out, and this is not one of them. So, if I can give them a leg up in some way, I want to be part of what they're doing, and they're onto something.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? First off, I will say thank you, IntelliGuy. That's a very good point, and it's something that this is the value proposition that you guys bring. You all have your own thoughts, your own opinions on the matter. So feel free to voice those, because that's how the guests who are joining this can kind of take those ideas as well, and those questions and the feedback, and can really, the feedback itself can help them more in some ways than even money. So please feel free to share those gems and that information. We have about 5 more minutes left.
Cool. Any other questions, guys?
Explain like I'm 5 in 5 minutes. Is that what you're wanting, Chicken?
Okay, an ELI 5 is basically we reward the computation you do for others, their BOINC projects on top of proof of stake. So you need some Gridcoin in order to stake a block. When you do stake a block, we will reward you proportionally to how much you compute a project compared to the rest of the team, how much they're computing the project. So it's just basically like a ranking system. We're getting asked if we've cured cancer yet. No, but World Community Grid is working pretty heavily on that.
So essentially, a good place to take that ELI 5 might be with the cancer. Like, for instance, if I want to go out, like you created I forget what did you call it, but it's like a protein folding or something like that, right? For the cancer.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think Rosetta at Home is a protein folding project. Folding at Home is a different project by Stanford that's rewarded by CureCoin and Folding Coin and stuff like that. But World Community Grid does, protein folding and, tries to cure, it does cancer mapping. It does OpenZika, which is Zika,
Yes.
research and stuff like that.
So if somebody wanted, essentially what it is for somebody who's new is, if you care about this, you're not using your computer, you can let your computer's brain solve problems for us while you're watching a television show or doing whatever else you have to do in your life. And you could still be letting your computer that otherwise might not be doing anything help some causes that you care about. In my mind, this is a wonderful way of almost, in some ways, replacing charity, in terms of, various certain projects.
I definitely agree. I do see it as charity in a way for certain projects. You think of it as you spend 50 quid on your electricity bill instead of giving that £50 to a cancer charity, where you don't know if that full £50 is going to make it to actual research, because it pays for people's employment and stuff like that. Whereas if you crunch the research yourself, you've spent £50 on trying to cure cancer or open Zika directly yourself.
And better yet, in terms of things like that, I mean, if you were to compare yourself to something like the Red Cross, where a very, very small percentage actually goes to the cause that is supposed to be being supported, this is a world of difference in terms of comparing the two.
Definitely, and you could potentially become part of history, and maybe get something named after yourself. What if you do Asteroid at Home and you find an Armageddon asteroid that gets diverted because of your computation you did on your old, Android phone? It'd be pretty crazy.
You're going to be a hero.
A user in the chat is asking, with computing power increasing significantly through Moore's law, where do we see Gridcoin in 5 years? Well, BOINC has existed for about 12 years at this point, and a few years before that, through the SETI at Home project, before it became the BOINC project. So I could see ourselves still being around in 5 years' time, no doubt. In 20 years' time, probably, if the BOINC projects are still around. I think that with everyday computers are getting so much more powerful than they were 10 years ago, in another 10 years' time, all of these enthusiast gear will be super cheap, and you'll be able to, tap into a serious amount of computing power that would otherwise potentially go in a landfill,
Yep. And I think we're going to see a future essentially where we leverage our computers to perform many of the services that we need and do it in a decentralized fashion that pays us. So I think that this is a huge step forward, and what you guys are doing is actually a very integral piece in the history of cryptocurrencies. So I really want to say thank you for joining up and doing this and all you do, man, because you are a busy guy, and I know you're also in college. So you're not ever getting to relax, I suspect. But with that said, if anybody wants to reach out to you, ask questions, dig deeper, how do they do that?
Well, I'm on Steem. There's the hashtag Gridcoin, area. But in my RSVP thread, or post even, I've got a bunch of links at the bottom. Straight to Telegram or our forums is the best way to contact the entire community. I'm on Telegram as CM Mobile, and there's also an IRC channel that is very, busy. It's on Freenode, hashtag Gridcoin. There's probably over 100 people at any time from around the world. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about Gridcoin once again. I'll see you next week.
Sure. And if somebody wants to join your Hangout tomorrow, would you like to just remind them one final time?
Oh, yeah, sure. Our 31st Hangout is at 9 p.m. GMT on the 27th. It's tomorrow.
And you hold it in this Mumble client, correct?
Yeah, it's in the same Mumble server. You can see up above the Gridcoin channel. We've been doing this for probably about 9 months at this point. We'll probably be doing it another years to come, So everyone's welcome. Cheers.
Thank you very much, man. And it's always good to support the people who are working hard in any little ways. We have a lot of people listening to our Hangouts now. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're not here today, or maybe you're here and you don't listen to the Hangouts afterwards, I urge you guys, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, but it's really important that you all recognize that you have something to offer, and all it takes is to sit down and ask yourself what that is. Sometimes you don't know, just try and you'll find it. But whenever you find projects like these that you care about, try to find a way that you can support them. A lot of little ways from a lot of little people adds up to big things. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for attending these Hangouts and everybody for supporting the guest speakers who join here. Not only are they going to get what looks like a share of about $400 or $500 today, maybe a little bit more, but they're also going to be getting money from the upvotes they received in the RSVP. It looks like CM Steem is going to have $25.36 worth of Steem power and Steem just for his RSVP post. But in addition, sharing these things are with other people who are of a like mind is one of the most important things that we can do. So you do get money for this, but you also have some amazing other value propositions that might not be quite as obvious, but nonetheless should not be ignored.